discussion of interest, especially if there's any of the new people that are having any questions about what they're experiencing today, or what is this Krishna consciousness movement or process. And then I'll open it up to anyone that would like to offer a question first before I begin. Please, what's your name? Michael.
So where does authentic devotion begin? I guess I've been wondering, because you can't be devoted. You can try, but I don't think that's exactly where you start. So I think there's got to be some kind of grace involved, but maybe if you'd like to speak about
how to attain authentic devotion? Is that a good paraphrase of your question? Or how to go or move towards authentic devotion?
Yeah, how to find that bliss that comes, how to be in that bliss that comes with the devotion. You know, it can be, I think devotion can kind of be like a surface kind of.
Okay. It's a word that's thrown around a lot now, isn't it? What's that? How does devotion start? Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mike. It sounds like a few other people have a question like this. Raise your hand if you have this question or feeling this wondering. Okay. Thank you, Michael. It's never the case that the person who's asking the question is alone, but they're sometimes alone the brave one. So we appreciate it. I'd like to then first start with a definition of devotion. And you also added with your question, Michael was talking about the bliss that comes with devotion. So you're talking, that's the feeling, which may be distinct from the act itself. Just like when we're habituated to eating very bad things, like who has been guilty of eating fast food at least once in their life? Twice or 20 or 100,000 times? Right? And when you make that choice to begin doing the right thing, to begin eating the proper way, do you always enjoy the food that you're eating? The healthy food, the salad, the fresh bread, the whole grains, the organic, the vegan, raw. We don't always enjoy, but that is healthy eating. So we may not be feeling like, man, this healthy eating is a nice thing. We may be thinking, I want to go back to my fast food, my number 7 with the large Coke. I want to go back to that. But the right thing to do is to eat healthy, assuming that we want to have healthy bodies, which give us healthy minds, which give us a capacity for experiencing the world in a much fuller way. So similarly, it may be, and I'm not saying it is the case, but consider that the act of devotion and the feeling of devotion that you're indicating, which is to be happy on our end, may not come hand in hand. They may not immediately appear together, and we'll talk about that. So I'm going to try to tie your question in, Michael, with what I was going to talk about already, which is that we are, in fact, in this process, in this Krishna consciousness movement, as taught to us by Srila Prabhupada, trying to do one thing, and that is to become pure devotees of God. So this devotion that Michael is questioning, that's actually the only question to ask. Is how do I become a devotee? And so what is a devotee? What is one who's on the standard of devotion that Srila Prabhupada gave us? There is a text in the Bhagavatam. Do you know the scripture? Michael, we've heard of this one. Srimad Bhagavatam. Many others probably have the Bhagavatam. It is a history of God and his devotees. And history goes back eons, hundreds and thousands and millions of years, and it talks about the living entities in other universes. God's creation is immense and expansive. It goes a lot further back than most of modern history would like us to think. Because as souls, as living entities, we have 3 characteristics. One of those characteristics is that we are sat. We are eternal. One is that we are fully knowledgeable, chid, and then the other, which is the one that Michael is referencing, is that we are ananda. We are blissful. We're meant to be happy. But why aren't I happy? I got into the school I wanted to get into. Why aren't I happy? I got the job I wanted to get. Why aren't I happy? I bought the car I always dreamed of buying. Why aren't I happy? I'm dating the girl I always wanted to date. Why aren't I happy? I'm watching the movie I've been waiting for a year and a half to come out. Why aren't I happy? Who can relate? So why aren't we happy? Because we're sat, we're eternal, and so we're not able to find happiness in those temporary circumstances. The movies, maybe like if you're like me and you were really into Lord of the Rings, and I thought I was kind of lucky because Lord of the Rings is really long. Still, although you were in the theater for 3.5 hours, the movie comes to an end. You may love your university, and for years afterwards you can wear the sweatshirt that you wore the day the game was won against that team that nobody else liked. But still, society will force you to leave that college. You cannot be a student forever. Right? You may be the very prominent, very big, very powerful person in your office for a day or a month or a year or a few years, but then another bigger, more prominent, more powerful, better looking, more charismatic person will come in and he will take your position. She will take your position. And then you'll be left feeling very unhappy. So these temporary circumstances can't bring us happiness. We have to look for something eternal, something that fits with our eternal nature. And service to God gives us access to an experience that is eternal. Whether you believe in it or not, an experience of God is available. Just like long before we knew about what is gravity, we were confined by gravity's laws, weren't we? Right? Maybe we heard about gravity in 4th or 5th grade, but were we floating off the surface of the earth before? Right? Or right now, if I said I don't believe in gravity, does that mean I can fly away? Of course not. So similarly, it doesn't really matter if you believe in God or not. What matters, are you trying to experience Him? Are you serving Him? And then, whether or not you actually know who He is, what He is, how He is, why He is, you will feel that ananda, you will feel that bliss, because you will connect to something else, to someone else who is eternal. So this movement that Srila Prabhupada started is commonly called the Hare Krishna movement. And people that follow his teachings are called Hare Krishnas. What is Hare Krishna?
Eternal God. Eternal God.
Eternal God. Yes, Amen. And God is a name for Krishna. Yes. Hare Krishna is the most intimate name of God. Consider that God is actually not a name, God is a position. Just like there's CEO, but if somebody is a CEO, you don't call him, hey CEO. Steve Jobs, CEO. So similarly, God is a position, and the person that holds that position, his name is Krishna. And this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Bhagavatam, many other texts, by many other persons, not only Srila Prabhupada, but a line of personalities going all the way back to Krishna himself, who personally declared, hey, I'm God. You actually won't find it anywhere else in any other scripture, where somebody openly says, hey, I'm God, and he has a bunch of other people that agree with him, and then say the same thing year after year after year for thousands of years. You won't find it anywhere else. Try, please, prove me wrong. I want you to come to me with something that says different. But actually it's not true. Krishna's the only one that says it because he's the only one that is it. He's the only one that is God. So when we serve God, the easiest way to do it is by chanting his name, Hare Krishna. And that's why Prabhupada, he didn't worry so much about the person's knowing whether or not Krishna is God. Because when we say his name, Hare Krishna, it's like taking Tylenol. Again, we'll go back to when we were 5 and 6 and didn't have much knowledge of gravity or Tylenol or any other thing. But if we had a headache or a tummy ache or a foot ache or whatever ache we had, and our mom would give us some Tylenol, she didn't have to read us the label, right? As we were taking it, she didn't have to say, what is acetaminophen and how does it interact with your system and reduces the swelling. No, it happens. The medicine works. So similarly, service to God, knowledge is not necessary, although it's helpful. But it's not necessary in order to serve him. Simply by hearing the name Krishna, we're doing some service to Krishna. Simply by saying the name Krishna, we're doing some service to Krishna. So this service, this is actually devotional service, Michael. This is actually being done. Now, the feeling of Ananda, the feeling of bliss, may not be coming. Why is that? You have an addiction? What, your addiction is your own suffering? That's an interesting way of saying that you identify with your suffering. Right? I need to be a poor, white male, 28, have a degree but jobless. I need to be that. Because other people know me as that, other people understand me as that, I relate to other people as that. Right? Sometimes they talk about, this is common amongst young women who have an abusive relationship in the younger part of their life. And they commonly have abusive relationships with men all throughout their life. Because they like being abused? Of course not. But they identify with being abused. They identify themselves as someone who should be abused, and that's how they think of themselves. Of course, that self is temporary, that self is related to the body, and yet our identity is wrapped up in these forms, these temporary vehicles. So this devotional service to God helps us to identify with that eternal nature that we have. And this chanting of Hare Krishna is the recommended way, the simplest way, the easiest way, to dissociate from the material energy and attach ourselves to the spiritual energy. So I was coming around to this verse in the Bhagavatam because we wanted to define this word devotion. So the verse goes, and it's Sanskrit, Savaya Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhaktir Adoshaje. Bhaktir is the word devotion. And Adoshaje means supreme transcendence. So service, bhakti, to the supreme, that which is beyond this temporary material situation, must be, and here's the qualification that you were asking about, Michael, ahoitaki apratihata. Ahoitaki means unmotivated, apratihata means uninterrupted. And then, after those two things are established, unmotivated, uninterrupted, yayatma, atma is you, Michael, and me, and everyone here. Atma means soul. So each individual soul, when they achieve this unmotivated, uninterrupted service to Adokshade, God, then supra siddhati. Siddha means perfect, or satisfaction. Siddhati means satisfaction. Supra, you'll find many, what is that? Help me with my grammar.
Prefixes.
Thank you. You'll find, was that you, Dave, back there? Thank you, Dave. He's our closet scholar. He's the smartest person in the room. You'll find him at Wayne State Library with calculus book and Bhagavatam right next to each other. Many prefixes in Sanskrit. Sanskrit is the mother tongue, actually. These books, the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavatam, all of them are written in Sanskrit, which is the mother tongue of all others on this planet, and others. So supra means the most, super satisfied comes. All the happiness that you could desire, and then more comes when you're serving unmotivated, uninterrupted. But these two things are very difficult. Unmotivated means without any consideration of your own pleasure. So it's a paradox. I want to be happy, but I have to not think about being happy in order to be happy. And apratiyata means uninterrupted, means you don't stop to consider your own pleasure, to arrange for your own safety, to arrange for your own protection, for your own well-being, for your own maintenance. You don't do any of that. You only consider the happiness, the safety, the well-being of your beloved, of Krishna. Very difficult. See how it's not so much a matter of I believe? You can believe this to be true, but are you experiencing it? Definitely not yet. So it takes practice. So what I personally wanted to discuss today, and I'm very grateful to Michael for offering a scene in which maybe the few teachings that I was going to offer could be accepted more in everyone's heart, is the 3 characteristics that Prabhupada describes are necessary to have in order to achieve this standard of unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service. He describes 3 things as necessary. We must be patient. We must be enthusiastic. And we must be determined. And to give you all a little hope and a little faith that yes, even you can come to this platform, which is admittedly very high, I'm going to talk about 3 5-year-olds that were all on this platform. 3 5-year-olds. So the first one we'll talk about is patience, because that was the one. We must be patient with ourselves in accepting that, yes, for a very long time, I have not been acting in a spiritual way. We'll go back to the example of eating healthy. Has anyone ever done that, gone from eating very terribly to eating somewhat less terribly? Maybe we'll even say healthy. We'll go as far as to say, please, pants high so that everyone can be encouraged. See, you're not alone, guys. It's not easy, right? And if you were to stop your program of trying to eat healthy every time you wound up eating a chocolate bar or getting some French fries, would you ever make it to where you are today if you didn't forgive yourself when you slipped up? If you weren't patient with yourself? Of course not. However, the 5-year-old I want to talk about, the patience he exhibited was super excellent, beyond reproach. It was perfect patience. Because he had a father who claimed himself to be and imposed upon everyone else the idea that he was God. He was a soul just like you and I, but he was so much wanting to be in control that he performed austerity. He performed penance so that he would dissociate his consciousness from his immediate bodily situation, which then allows him to control the material energy around him in much more subtle ways than others. Who's seen Star Wars? I think there's like something happening in Star Wars world right now. On my Facebook, there's a lot of Star Wars references. I don't understand why. But there's something going on with Star Wars right now, so I'm going to make a Star Wars reference. In Star Wars, they talk about the Force, right? And Luke, who's the good guy, he uses the Force, and Darth, he's the bad guy, he also uses the Force. So the yogic knowledge that's offered in the Vedas, it can be used for good and it can be used for evil. So Prahlad, who's our 5-year-old hero, he had a father who was using yogic knowledge for evil. He was using it to control and manipulate. And the only person who wasn't willing to say, yes, Hiranyakashipu, that's his father's name, yes, you are God, you are the biggest, you are the best, we bow our heads to you, Almighty Lord. The only person who was not willing to say that was his 5-year-old son. The 5-year-old thorn in his side. Now, most 5-year-old boys, they heartily agree, yes, my father is the best, he's the most wonderful, he provides for my clothes, he provides for my tricycle, he provides for my food, he bought me my Game Boy. Yes, of course my father is God. Most 5-year-olds are thinking their dad is God. It's not very difficult. It's difficult for the father to convince everyone else how wonderful he is. But the 5-year-old, it's not very hard. Dad is strong, dad is handsome, mom likes him so much. But Prahlad, he said, Dad, you're not God. God is God. But this really angered Hiranyakashipu. He was the personification of anger, actually. And so he tried in so many ways to kill his son. He tried to kill his 5-year-old boy. It's actually the original Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner story. This is where it came from. Because every time that Hiranyakashipu would try to kill Prahlad, somehow or other it would go awry. It wouldn't work. Once, Hiranyakashipu put poison into Prahlad's food. But Prahlad doesn't eat food. Food is for the animals. Prahlad offers anything that he's going to put inside of himself first to Krishna. And in doing that, in the Catholic faith, there's the scientific understanding of transubstantiation, is that what it's called? Where grape juice and a cracker can become the body of Christ when certain prayers are said with a certain intention, and then that benediction, that grace that Michael was speaking about earlier, when grace is offered by God and a desire is expressed by the soul to have a connection with God, then the mercy of God comes into the form of a cracker and some grape juice. So that practice that's done by the Catholics once a week, with a little cracker and some grape juice, Vaishnavas, or followers of this Krishna consciousness, they do it with everything. They say, why not? God's unlimited. So he can come into my cracker, he can come into my juice, he can come into my rice, my dal, my cookies, everything. So Prahlad, any food he would get, first he would offer it to Krishna. And so the poisoned food, the bowl that was put in front of him, he first offered it to Krishna. And so there he is eating happily. And Hiranyakashipu was pulling his hair. What is going on? He should be dead by now. But he offered his food to Krishna. And so the dangerous effects of the poison, they were mitigated. So in so many ways like this, he was put into fire, a stampeding herd of elephants, thrown off a cliff. Every time, Prahlad was protected. So this is the patience. Prahlad was simply patient. He didn't try and attack his father. Hey, Dad, why are you doing this to me? Stop being a butthead. He didn't say it like that. Stop being a meanie. He said, Dad, please worship God. You're not God. He didn't worry about himself at all. Please stop hurting me. You never heard that from Prahlad. He was just meditating on God, meditating on Krishna, and patiently waiting for his father to get with the program. But his father was so envious, he was so mean, that eventually Krishna himself came to get rid of Prahlad's father on his behalf. So Prahlad, this 5-year-old boy, showed supreme patience. So with ourselves, Prahlad was patient with his demoniac father. We must be patient with our demoniac self. With our envious self, with our jealous self, with our lazy self. We're all these things to some degree. There's a Native American story or proverb, you might say, that there's 2 dogs in the heart, and these dogs are fighting all the time. One dog is the good dog. Honest, brave. What are some other good qualities? Compassionate, simple. That's the good dog. And the bad dog is lusty, envious, greedy, vengeful, jealous, deceitful, all those things. So, which dog is going to win the fight? The good dog, automatically, just because he's the good dog? It's a Disney movie?
Whichever dog
Whatever dog you feed, yes. If we feed the bad dog, he's going to be stronger. If we expose ourselves, and that's why we call spiritual life a science. It doesn't, who cares what you believe if you're not exposing yourself and feeding yourself with good things, if you're not following the teachings of Christ or Buddha or Muhammad or Krishna, then what does it matter what you say you believe? So the great teachers, most recently, and certainly the foremost, Srila Prabhupada, he's shown us with so many books. Srila Prabhupada wrote and translated 70 Vedic literatures. So we wouldn't have to believe anything. We would be able to practically experience our own spiritual reality. Were we patient, determined, and enthusiastic enough to do so? So that's why we're talking about that today. So this patience, though, we have to have it because it's not right away that when you want to ride the bike, you're gliding along smoothly. You get some bumps and you get some scrapes. So that's our point of patience. Each of these you can have a whole weekend, a whole lifetime speaking about it, meditating and cultivating. But for the sake of time, we'll go to determination. So determination was characterized by another 5-year-old. Who can think of the 5-year-old that I'm thinking of? Yes, Dhruva Maharaj. Right? So Dhruva Maharaj, he was part of a family. His father was the king, and his king, as kings used to do, had several wives. And his wife, or rather, Dhruva's mother was not the favorite wife of the king. And so Dhruva went to sit on his dad's lap, as many 5-year-olds like to do one day. And what happened?
His mother said that you have to be born out of my womb to sit in my father's lap.
Yeah, the favorite mom, who was not Dhruva's mom, basically insulted Dhruva's mom. It's like a your mama joke. Right, Suniti. So then Dhruva became very upset. He said, how dare you say that about my mother? How dare you say that about me? Somehow disqualifying me from sitting on my own father's lap. But out of the whole situation, his insult and his upset and his own mother's inability to do anything because it was true that the father preferred this wife to the other, so being a henpecked husband, that father didn't stand up for his son or his other wife at all. He simply let, is it Surichi, right? Is the one that's in his?
Yes.
Yeah, Surichi, he just let her run amok and lorded over everyone. So in his helplessness, Suniti, Dhruva's mother, recommended that he pray to Krishna. Krishna is the only one that can help you because Dhruva was so enraged. But he's only 5 years old, it was easy to wage war. He was so upset though. His mother said, pray to Krishna. And so this 5-year-old boy became determined that he was going to see God face to face. And he wasn't going to give up his meditation until he did. And so as was custom at the time, he went out into the woods, he went to the forest, where the great sages go to perform severe acts of austerity, giving up any attempts at eating or sleeping or mating, doing only the bare necessity to keep body and soul together. And the intensity of Dhruva Maharaj's meditation was such that it actually attracted the attention of residents of the higher planetary systems. We talk about aliens. So the aliens are actually called demigods. You find them throughout the Vedic literature. Residents from other planets come to our planet from time to time, sometimes based on the attention grabbing of residents on this planet, or others. And so Dhruva had the residents of the whole universe being disturbed because of the severity of his meditation. He was so intent on seeing Krishna. So have any of you ever met a 5-year-old? What is their attention span like? And thankfully we don't have any 5-year-olds in this room right now. We all would have been distracted 7 times over. Because they're here, they're there, they're just trying to find something shiny or something loud or something big or something to climb on. place for 6 months, and with all of their consciousness demand that God come for them. Such was the determination of Dhruva Maharaj. So we have patience, we have determination, now we'll talk about enthusiasm to close. The 5-year-old that I wanted to mention in regards to enthusiasm is our very own Srila Prabhupada, the founder, Acharya of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So as we just mentioned, 5-year-olds, their attention span not so big. And they can be very enthusiastic about a certain thing. Who here is a parent, by chance, of a child older than the age of 5? Okay. So, have you ever had the experience of your 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old coming to you, very excited to play an instrument, to play a sport, to do some activity like dancing or painting? Who themselves can remember being such a 5-year-old? Wanting to do some particular, you got mom to buy you the $800 flute, or pay for the $400 ballet lessons, right? And within days, probably moments, you hold the flute and it doesn't make beautiful music for you as soon as you're blowing on it, nothing's happening. It's broken, mom. I want a drum kit. The attention of 5-year-olds is not so impressive. Srila Prabhupada, when he was only 5 years old, was organizing a festival for the pleasure of Krishna, known as Rath Yatra. Rath Yatra is a festival that's now celebrated all over the world because of Srila Prabhupada's determination and patience, and primarily and most of all because of his enthusiasm. These deities here, Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra, the ones that you can't help but smile at when you see them, even you don't know why. You don't know. People can't look like this, you're thinking. That's another class for another day. But for now, we'll just accept that God can come in whatever form he wants to because he's God. And if he can't, then he isn't God, so he must be able to. So if he wants to come as this form, he can, and he has, thankfully, because it's such a happy looking. And once a year, at least, Jagannath will leave the altar and go out on a procession, a parade, for the benefit of all of the other people, his children, who don't know to come and visit him at the temple. They're distracted by their job or their family or they're serving their country or serving some humanitarian. They're just distracted some way or another, somehow or another. They don't know to come see Jagannath, so Jagannath comes to see them. And in India, in the original temple where Jagannath forms are worshipped, 1.5 million people come to see and pull Jagannath because he comes out on a big cart and there's thick ropes attached to this cart. When I say big cart, the cart is from this wall to the wall on the other side of this wall that we can't even see. It's an enormous cart. It's 150 feet tall. It's made from tree trunks, literally. When Mark Twain saw this cart, Mark Twain, the famous American writer, he said, "The truth is stranger than fiction." Very nice quote. So Srila Prabhupada wanted to celebrate a Rath Yatra festival at the age of 5. And how many days was his Rath Yatra festival that he was able to rally the troops to celebrate? Here in the West, even here in Detroit, we have this Rath Yatra festival. And when I first began associating with devotees here in Detroit 4 years ago, I met the devotees only 2 weeks before the Rath Yatra festival. So I was able to attend Jagannath's festival, and it was a blast. There were 4,000 people there. Now, in only 4 years' time, there's 7,000 people that are coming. Last year's Rath Yatra, we had 7,000 people. This year, I'm sure we'll have even more, because all of you will work even harder to tell people how much fun it is to serve God. But we only have our festival for one day. And it takes all year and all our consciousness and all our effort and determination to be able to pull it off that one day. 5-year-old Srila Prabhupada organized an 8-day Rath Yatra festival. All of the women in his part of Calcutta were making preparations for Lord Jagannath so that prasadam could be distributed. His father told him they didn't have enough money to buy a cart, so he began crying despondently. And an old Bengali woman comes out from her home as they're walking back to theirs, Prabhupada and his father. She comes out, she says, "Why is this young boy crying?" And his father, Gormohan Dey, says, "Well, he wants a cart for Rath Yatra, but we cannot afford one." They had gone to a carpenter to ask how much, and it was too much money. So Prabhupada was despondent, he was crying. She comes out of her home, "Why is he crying? We don't have a cart." "I have a cart." So Prabhupada was able to use this old Bengali woman's cart, which happened to be perfect size, 3 feet. And he organized his friends, he organized their families, he organized his own family for an 8-day Rath Yatra festival. That is enthusiasm for service to the Lord. That enthusiasm is transferred to others. And then when we transfer to others, just like we talked about the health example earlier, so who's ever had a buddy to go work out at the gym at? Or a buddy who also agrees to start to begin to eat healthy, or to wake up on time, or to X good habit, right? Isn't it so much easier when you have a buddy, or 2, or 7,000? So when we have this Rath Yatra, and there's 7,000 other people that are chanting Hare Krishna, 7,000 other people that are pulling the cart with us, 7,000 other people, or maybe this year 70,000 other people. That bad dog, he doesn't even bother barking. He's very scared of getting kicked at that point. He's going to wait until you're by yourself again. When there's 70,000 other good dogs barking, the bad dog is smart enough to stay quiet. So then the trick is, always stay in the association of others that are in agreement about feeding their good dog, and you'll never have any trouble. Then this what seems like a very high standard, that unmotivated, uninterrupted devotional service becomes very easy. Because very quickly you start acting on the platform of devotional service. Because it's what everyone else around you is doing. Just like you started smoking, you started drinking, because everyone else was doing it. It's what the cool kids wanted. Just like if you, like me, grew up in a household where you ate meat, it's not because when you learned out later that eating meat is a very terrible thing to do, even on a material level, that you wanted to stop, but it's just what you were taught to do from a very young age. So by your association, you picked up these bad habits, and by association, you can take up good ones. So that's the primary key to success, but it's these 3, enthusiasm, determination, and patience, which you will develop. And by developing those, with the goal of supreme love, it will come in due course of time. It's a process, though. Don't think it's a belief situation. You're not all Hare Krishnas now that you've come to the Hare Krishna temple, unless you want to be. Unless you act like it, unless you do the process the way it's meant to be done, so that you can achieve the result as it's said to be achieved.
True.
If you buy a plane ticket to New York, you shouldn't expect to end up in London. So Srila Prabhupada has given us these 70 books so that the process is very clearly defined, so we can follow it with our intelligence in the association of others and achieve the desired success. So if anybody would like, I have here with me, I went and made a printout of the biography of Srila Prabhupada, which is a really enlivening biography, because it shows you that there really was a person who was on that seemingly impossible platform of devotion on this planet only a few years ago. And we have video of him, and we have his books, and we have his disciples like Sri Nandanandana Prabhu and Bodhi Chintamani and Antariksha Prabhu and Kila Prabhu. We have so many of Prabhupada's disciples right here in Detroit who had personal association with him and can attest to the platform of his love. So this book is really enlightening, and I decided to print out, for anyone that would like to take it, the excerpt that talks about little Srila Prabhupada, whose name was Abai. Abai means fearless. Little Srila Prabhupada organizing Rath Yatra, for anyone that would like it. And then on the back of the sheet is a list of contact persons based on Detroit metro area that can help you help Krishna put on a good Rath Yatra if you guys want to be a part of something like that. And one of the devotees, actually the principal devotee who's organizing that whole effort, Mother Nitya Krishna, or Nitya Kishori rather, is going to come up and just share a few words about the details of how you guys can start